Bill Barr, a lifelong conservative and Donald Trump's own former attorney general, recently sat down for an interview at the Chicago Institute of Politics, and he had some interesting things to say. Number one, about Donald Trump's mental health and his cognitive ability, and number two, what a second Trump presidency might look like. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, full disclosure, I like talking about Bill Barr. I like doing videos about Bill Barr because he's fascinating to me. This is a man who is a lifelong conservative. He was the attorney general under President George H.W. Bush and then had a reprise, a second stint as attorney general under Donald Trump. And he and Trump are very different men, okay? Whereas Donald Trump is corrupt and stupid and incompetent and ignorant and unprincipled and, not driven by any sense of ideology besides malignant narcissism, Bill Barr is very intelligent, principled in all the worst ways. I mean, he is a devout conservative, okay? So he'll do anything and everything to pursue a conservative agenda. And he's not known to be a narcissist in the way that Trump is. So the idea was, at least according to political experts and people in the know, was that Bill Barr basically auditioned to be Donald Trump's attorney general when there was a vacancy for it because he wanted to prop Trump up. Basically, he was like, this guy's an idiot, but he's an opportunity. And so maybe with, somebody who is an educated, ideologically driven conservative, maybe they could keep him in check and also get some conservative wins. Now, whereas Bill Barr will tell you that he reined Trump in, he also empowered Trump in the worst possible ways. He gave him cover. After the Mueller report, he authorized the Durham investigation to investigate the investigators of the investigation. So he has a mixed record when it comes to that. Bill Barr is certainly no hero. But these two clips are really interesting because since leaving Trump's White House, which he did shortly before Trump left office, it was right after the election, before Trump left office, Bill Barr has become increasingly vocally critical of Trump, while at the same time suggesting that he'll still vote for him if the choice is between Trump and a Democrat or Trump and Biden. So I want to play these two clips. We're going to start with the first one here, in which Bill Barr is asked about Trump's mental health and his mental sharpness.
I mean, even the last, couple weeks or month, I thought his comments, even on Hezbollah, that was appalling. Like, it's almost like do you think is he losing it, or is he just becoming...
His verbal skills are limited, and so if you get him away from very, 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 the adjectives sort of they're unfamiliar to him, and he's not, and they sort of spill out, and he goes too far.
That was a very polite way of saying
he's not,
yes, he is
not very
losing it,
disciplined.
although there really wasn't much to lose to begin with. But listen, as I've said before, Donald Trump is not a young man. He's 77 years old. He's only 3 years younger than President Biden. They're both profoundly old men. And as much as I, and hopefully you, vastly prefer President Biden and the Biden administration to a first or second Trump presidency, there is no question that these two men, as they've gotten older, have lost a degree of verbal acuity, of mental acuity. Now, in the case of Biden, we still have reports from not only people who work with him, who are on his side politically, but also his opponents like Kevin McCarthy, or neutral people like Mark Milley, the former Joint Chiefs of Staff, who say that, though Biden may be gaffe prone and he may stumble over his words, he's mentally engaged, he knows the material, he's an expert on foreign policy, he's still very sharp. There are just some cobwebs there. With Trump, he's very, very stupid. He's not curious. He is incompetent when it comes to politics. He doesn't know the material. He doesn't have any expertise. And he's gaffe prone, and he's not verbally sharp. Biden is much better than Trump, even in this respect. So I think it was very polite of Bill Barr to basically say, verbally, this guy is not with it. And he's not the only one to point this out. Ron DeSantis, who also used to be a Trump-supporting sycophant, is also becoming much more outspoken about this, where he's like, listen, Trump in 2016 and Trump in 2023 are very different men. And I do think that's true, and I also think it's true that Donald Trump in 2016 is a very different man from Donald Trump 10 years prior to that in 2006. And so there's not much to have lost in the first place because, again, Donald Trump, especially when it came to politics and things of substance, was always really stupid. But even Bill Barr, who tries to go out of his way to avoid insulting Trump, is even giving the game away in this respect. But there's a second clip that I want to play here, too, about what a second Trump presidency might look like, according to Bill Barr.
What do you think Trump would be like as president if he wins in 24?
Well, he's already saying it's going to be about retribution, and he's a very petty man, and it's all about him. He has a very fragile ego, and something happened to him as a kid, and I'm not going to spend time psychoanalyzing it, but every encounter he has to come out showing the other guy that he's better. It's all about the assertion of his ego, and I think he will be self-indulgent in a new administration, and won't be as effective as he could otherwise.
So there
be,
again, pretty polite of Bill Barr to say that, but very, very blunt at the same time.
Start
Trump,
moving
I
toward
just want to point
chaos.
this out because our buddy Luke Beasley pointed this out. So will you commit to voting for his Democratic opponent, Bill? Because Bill Barr has been extremely cagey about this for months and months and months, even as the evidence has piled up of Trump's corruption and his illegality. Bill Barr has hesitated to say that he would vote for President Biden in a re-election or even any Democrat. As a matter of fact, early on, I think even earlier this year, he said, listen, as awful as Trump would be, and I'm paraphrasing here, he would still vote for Trump if push came to shove. He since has seemed to move away from it, so I think he's wavering. But you almost want to play that back to him, okay, Bill Barr, former Trump Attorney General, a man who knows Trump very well, who has worked for Trump very closely. I mean, this guy's an expert on Donald Trump in a way that matters. I want to play your own words back to you. You're saying this guy's a malignant narcissist and self-indulgent and ego-driven to a fault, who cannot be hemmed in or reined in or mitigated in any meaningful way by more disciplined people. Why on earth would it be acceptable? I understand it's not preferable, but why would it be even acceptable for this man to become the most powerful man in the world again? A man who can literally launch nuclear missiles, a man who commands the military of the world's greatest superpower, a man who is the head of government, head of state of the world's greatest superpower. Why would it even be just acceptable to you in any political context to give him the keys to that? Why can't, would you use these words? Could you use these words to describe Joe Biden? What Democrat in the running, Marianne Williamson, Cenk Uygur, RFK Jr., I mean, who fits this? Who fits this description other than Donald Trump? Because it seems to me if nobody does, then you have to admit that Donald Trump is the very worst option available to you, which means that if he gets the Republican nomination, which he almost certainly will, aren't you morally obligated to vote for anyone who stands a chance of beating him, which in this case would be Joe Biden? I would like somebody to pose the question to Bill Barr in that respect. And I like to keep revisiting Bill Barr's position on Donald Trump, each month or so, because again, he seems to be wavering. He seems to be moving a little bit closer and closer and closer to sanity. But we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments.